Thoughts of the people. Gossip. Good minds discuss events. Great minds discuss ideas.
It flows, and I'm here today with a great mind, Mike Elias. Elias? How do
Elias.
You Elias. I was way off.
That's all right. It's Jewish, not Spanish.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Elias. Yeah, I should have known that. Do you know that? Huh?
I said that's all right.
Yeah. Well, anyways, glad to have Mike Elias here from Idea Market originally, and working on other projects like Yasso, and has the band the Pearl Clutchers, which is interesting because there's like this interesting blend from knowing you, and hopefully we're able to talk a little bit about this, but an interesting blend of Catholic and Jewish.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Pearl Clutchers kind of is that Catholic aspect of it, right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about Pearl Clutchers, just real quick, because I'm
sure. So
curious to hear more about that.
I've been a rock musician for 20 years or so, blues and classic rock, and I became Catholic about a year ago, and that kind of precludes a lot of typical rock and roll content. Promiscuity, heavy drug use, just all kinds of sinful, evil things, praise of the devil and of hell a lot. Like one of my favorite bands
lately
is AC/DC, but they do so much devil stuff like all the time that I've had to, say a peaceful goodbye to a lot of their music. And, I'm legitimately okay with that. I got what I needed. It's a great style. I make music in that style sometimes, just not with that content.
Good.
But in any case, the Pearl Clutchers, I just wanted music like this to exist that was like legitimate old school rock and roll, but that has pious themes and theological themes and is about the heroism of the saints and like things that are actually cool, not just like edgy cool. Not destructive, not evil, but like actually the things that all those edgy things aspire to be and are imitating and pretending to be. So the Pearl Clutchers, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. The origin of the name is it comes from an insult thrown at the pious old ladies who would say that's the devil's music, blah blah blah. They're like trying to warn people that evil is creeping into popular music and popular culture. And they were ridiculed and called pearl clutchers, like, oh, they're just being super sensitive and clutching their pearls that they got from their grandmother in 1829 or whatever. But they were actually right. If you look around the pop music and the pop culture world, there's a lot of overt satanic and demonic and downright evil stuff going on that's just being presented as, oh, it's just entertainment, it's just music, it's just where culture is right now, and it doesn't even hide itself in the slightest bit. It's not a secret. And so those people were right, and they deserve credit. They deserve to have their image rehabilitated. So I'm honoring all those ladies who were on the ball over the last 100 years.
I appreciate that. That's good. I really like that. And so are your lyrics, are they overtly, you were saying you're going for the cool stuff, are they, is there any is it overtly and just in your face with Christianity and theology, or is it sort of mixed?
It's usually pretty subtle. One of my main complaints about typical Christian music and like what you think about when you hear that is that, like, South Park did a parody of Christian music where they took a song, like a love song, and just replaced the word baby with the word God or the word Lord, and just did it exactly like that. And like that's my problem. Like you can't just say it's about God and make it therefore good music. Like there has to be some poetry about it. So I want to write like that. I want to write music that is enjoyable and good in its own right artistically, and invite people, if they feel like it, to reflect on the themes and stuff. So no, I don't typically want to be overt about that stuff. I might write songs about the lives of the saints, or kind of painting a sort of impressionistic portrait of the saint, or some aspect of their life that I admire or am moved by. But I really want to make it good music first, and just kind of have it be about God at a deeper level, if people are interested in going there with it. And then also, of course, have that stuff for people who feel that way, because I think a lot of Christians are frustrated that the music that gets called Christian wouldn't really be able to compete with the same kind of music in its own genre.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I like that. So I like the idea of just delving into the cool things, the interesting things, the deeper things that about love, I'm sure, in relationships, but 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 with the idea that we're not going to just, well, we're not, that you're not going to have any kind of offensive material in there, and not just I mean, it might actually, you probably will have offensive material to some people, but it's not crass or
Right.
Sinful, like you said, leaning on
Right.
the offensiveness of sin.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it kind of seems like evil is the lazy way to interesting, like everyone has kind of a macabre draw to horror movies, or murder stories, or drug dealers, or criminals, like, because it kind of breaks us out of normal life and goes, oh, what if we had a friend who did all this evil stuff, and we could just sort of watch their life on TV or something like that. Like, and a lot of TV shows kind of work on that premise. Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, like all this evil stuff. But that the big secret of evil is that it's actually boring underneath, and it's just the same kind of patterns and illusions repeating that don't go anywhere. And the real trick is to reveal the coolness of the good, and that's what I'm excited about. And I make no claims to be able to do that, but I believe it's possible, and it's important, because it kind of ends up encouraging us to imitate and strive for the things that are worth imitating and striving for, rather than kind of getting sucked into, oh yeah, well, I'm going to be the next Walter White. Great. You're going to be, the next loser who gets thrown in a Mexican jail for the rest of his life and forgotten and doesn't do anything good for anybody ever. Good for you.
Well, but do you think that that's what draws people to those shows, or do you think that some of it could be the contrast, and not just wanting to be Walter White, but being drawn to the interesting struggle between overcoming evil, or defeating evil, or maybe even just struggling with evil, since we all struggle with it, and maybe it's like a thing that we see, and we're like drawn to it because we see ourselves, not because we want to be Walter White, but because we want to see, how does he deal with that? I don't know. That's just something that came.
Sure. And I'm probably being a bit unfair, but in the meantime, I think a lot of it is, a sort of competence porn. Like, we like seeing people who get into difficult situations figure out how to get out of it. Like a relatively wholesome version of that is Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean. You just go, oh, how is he going to handle it? He's a skillful guy. You just like watching skillful people handle business. And like that is satisfying. So I think there's an element of that.
That's good. I like that. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
dig
by
into
all
that.
means.
It's just you have such interesting things going on, and I wanted to kind of touch on those things, but maybe we can dig deeper into those things because part of this for Ramble Source, I'm trying to get to the source of the rambling, and
Nice.
for me in
Okay.
particular, and
Yeah.
and I just have I just know such interesting people, and if I don't go if I go too long without talking to people and about ideas, I get a little antsy. So in this quest, I'm asking people. I have this philosophy, this thing that I believe that everybody has 3 to 5 sermons that they come back to. And we're always sermonizing. We're always telling people how to live, but in a lot of times it can be in good ways, and it's because of our convictions. And so, but we can't have unlimited convictions. And I'm just curious, as I'm trying to figure out my own 3 to 5 sermons, core sermons, I'm interested to hear about others. So tell me about yours.
I really like that theory, and I think it's a cool premise for meeting people and interviewing people. So I look forward to seeing what you divine.
Okay.
I've been struggling with this because I probably, if you ask my wife, probably have like 1,000 sermons, but they all do kind of tie back to the same 3 maybe. Let's see.
Like if I were to ask you,
cold. Yeah, go for it, please.
So if I were to ask you, if you had advice, this is the last time we're ever going to see each other, and I just need, I'm about to go on a journey or something like that. What would be the one thing that if you could distill your experience, your learning, your expertise down into at least 1 or 2 things to tell me before we part ways, what would that be?
I think one of them, just especially in light of what a lot of people might follow me for, because I wrote a lot of epistemology stuff and worked on that kind of thing for Idea Market, is the value of love as epistemology. I really think love is kind of the original and the ultimate epistemology, without which things can't really be known. And let me unpack that a little bit. One of the main issues that I've written a lot about in the last few years is how when we don't want to agree with something, we will find ways to avoid understanding it. Because if we understand it properly, we might be convinced. And for a lot of beliefs and for a lot of people, that's just not acceptable. Well, I don't want to be convinced that gay marriage is morally wrong. I don't want to be convinced that abortion is morally wrong. I don't want to be convinced that God exists. I don't want to be convinced that, fill in the blank, right? We all have these things where when we see other people believing them, we go, ugh, I wouldn't want to be that person. I wouldn't want to be saying that. And that unwillingness to be changed into people that we might currently regard as enemies interferes with our ability to understand things at all. Because if we're not willing to agree with them eventually, there's no way we're going to permit ourselves to understand them. So this is a problem I've been kind of harping on for a while. And this is part 1 of maybe 3, but I'll pause here to see if you want to extrapolate on this a bit more.
Let's keep going into this one. Yeah. This is interesting.
Cool. I'm really glad. So the newsletter I've been writing for, I guess, a couple of years now, just off and on, is I've called it Truth Loving, and the tagline is the emotional work of rationality, because there's a big rationality community. There are a lot of philosophy oriented people on Twitter and just kind of in the tech world. Those are worlds that I've been in lately, who are interested in epistemology and figuring out, well, how do we discern truth in the information age with all its chaos and all that stuff. And the point of my newsletter so far has been that, look, it doesn't matter how smart you are or even how rational you are, if you don't do the emotional work of being willing to believe what's right in front of your face, being willing to believe the things that you can rationally discern. Because without this willingness, without this aspect, this emotional mastery, which I'm not claiming to have, just claiming to be aware of, without this emotional mastery, all of our intellectual tools and knowledge and training are just going to be sophisticated mechanisms for self-deception. We will end up where we want to be, not where the truth is. Valuing the truth over our preferences is an emotional achievement, an emotional priority. And if our emotional priorities are out of order, we're not going to arrive at the truth no matter how much work we put into it intellectually. It's a completely different faculty that the philosophy world is not paying any attention to. And it's the fundamental thing. It is the limiting factor. So that's what I've written the most about. And that's why I'm kind of interested in this topic. All right. That's part 2, maybe. Are we ready for part 3? You want to pause there and like discuss that a bit more?
Yeah.
Okay. So part 3 is, and this is something that's, super fresh for me that I've been reflecting on, is this idea of love as the ultimate epistemology. Because
I think that's good.
I'm really glad. There's a famous, George Washington Carver quote. George Washington Carver is most known for being the inventor of peanut butter. And he came up with hundreds of uses for the peanut. And, someone asked him how he did that. And he said, well, if you love something enough, it will reveal all its secrets. And that's a quote that is attributed to him. And that's kind of been, floating around. But what love does is it melts the resistance between ourself and the beloved thing. It melts the barriers. So unless I have some measure of love for the people who disagree with me, I won't be able to understand them. Unless I have some measure of love for the ideas that I disagree with, I'm not going to be able to understand them. Like, love is the willful action of dissolving resistance. If I'm frustrated with you,
say that again. Love is the willful action of dissolving limitation, or what was it?
Okay, so here's how I think of it right now. There's a lot of advice in like the spiritual psychological world of like, well, just stop resisting reality, non-resistance. These are phrases that come up a lot and they have a lot of value. But that's a very passive thing to do. It kind of sounds like, well, just relax, let down your guard, receive life. And this is all true and all immensely valuable. But I suspect they're missing half of the equation, that there is an active thing to do here. And that is love. Love is like putting that non-resistance on the end of a spear and stabbing stuff with it. If I don't like you, if I'm frustrated by you, I can make a willful effort to love you, and that will have the same effect as if somehow I could just like relax my resistance to you. It's the same phenomenon. It's just the active exertion side of it. And so since we all have these resistances to ideas and beliefs that we don't want to be convinced of, and people who disagree with us, love is the exertion we can make that allows us to understand them better, because it gets rid of those resistances that we have.
Well, I really love that. I'm really drawn to that idea. The thing that comes to mind, and the thing that I've struggled with, because I've thought a little bit about this, about this is actually something that I've thought about too, because I came up from a different standpoint, though. The idea that really a lot of what we love, or a lot of what we believe, comes from who we love.
Yeah.
And but the thing that is hard here is I'm trying to see where you are on the spectrum between postmodern and modern epistemology. It kind of seems like it's something else. But the thing that I struggle with is that the limitations of love, being as humans not being able to love indiscriminately and everybody, that even if, as I say that, I realize we're called to do that. but there are limitations to love, in the sense that truth becomes it becomes a relational thing, which could be good or bad. But so between the first thing you said, the limitation of dealing with what's in front of us and dealing with truth, objective truth, it seems to contradict a little bit with this with love being with truth being dependent on love. So I'm sure you've worked through this, so I'm curious to see what you came up with so far to deal with that.
Sure. It might be worth being a little more precise about what I mean by love. I'm kind of using the definition given by Thomas Aquinas. And he says that to love is to will the good of the other. So it's not as though we have to care for every stranger as though they're our mother, in the sense of like prioritizing their needs above our own, or something like it's not as though we have to have the same feelings of intimacy or trust or something like that. But to universally wish everyone else well, and universally not resist people in a certain way, universally not judge people, consider everybody a brother. I do think that's well within human capacity, because it's actually like the relaxation of a defense rather than the exertion of caring. But like it's kind of an interplay. I was just talking about the exertion side of it, but like since love and truth are one thing, when we replace this kind of our habitual non-love with love, it stays there because it's more real. It takes less effort to maintain. It might take effort to like establish, to overcome ourselves a little bit, but once it's there, it takes less effort to maintain, because that's the underlying reality, actually. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that that when we take the orientation, we change our orientation from that of a positional thing to an open and caring, in the sense of like, I wish you well, you personally, them well, not necessarily, like you're saying, not necessarily like I want to protect and be intimate with you, but
right.
But in the self-sacrificial level, I put my interests aside. At least I don't fortify them, and I look at your interests, that sort of thing.
Yeah. To maybe give even more of an example, I recently met a friend of a friend, and was kind of in a big group setting, and was feeling very critical. And I think I was feeling critical because he kind of reminded me of myself, and I would just have said certain things differently or done certain things differently, or maybe was just bothered by the things that I do that he was doing, and I don't like being reminded of the things that I do that bother me. But in any case,
Isn't that mostly the case with us, right?
yes,
When we see
absolutely.
someone like us, yeah.
So I wanted to share
Uh-huh.
that, this love as epistemology thing really involves a setting aside of the intellectual faculty, because what I did in this circumstance really kind of helped beautifully was I just willed myself to like this person.
Wow.
Even though I was feeling critical, I just those critical thoughts come up. Nope, I'm willing myself to like you. And just kind of, it took some effort. It was like lifting a weight. There was definitely an exertion going on, but it worked, and I ended up having an unusually good time.
Wow.
Yeah, just
But how do you do that though, Mike? Like, how do you make yourself? It seems like something that's impossible. Making yourself, to me, that is the biggest limiting aspect of the whole thing, is because like we are creatures of interest. And well, I guess maybe that's where you go, you just find something interesting about the person and dig in. But I'm curious as to what the process was to will yourself to like this person. What was that process like?
Very non-intellectual. It was really just grunt work. It was really just like it was like a squeeze, like an exertion, really. It was just
Like faking
I
it to
will
make
like this
it, or
person.
what did you do?
No, because what did I do? Well, first, when I would have like critical thoughts, when I have thoughts of dislike, I would cut them off. I would say no. I would stop thinking about that and just refocus on them, and just kind of take this like appreciation laser and focus it on them. Like just willing myself, to just like this person, and I guess conjuring like the feeling of liking and shooting it at them through my eyes. And the criticism thoughts want to come in, and the like superiority judgmental thoughts want to come in, and I have to keep them out of that laser. I have to like keeping them away and then reasserting that. And it was a purely emotional exertion. I was not like thinking of reasons and stuff. It was just like operating on the level of the will. And it really did change my perceptions, and it reduced my resistance to this guy. And we're buds now.
Wow. That's awesome. I love that. Well, I mean, it has to be able to be done, right? Because we are put in situations, well, not all the time, specifically with our family, in which we are in a situation where we're forced to love them. I guess we're not forced to love them, but there is an aspect of willing. We don't necessarily love them because they're beautiful or interesting or lovable. We love them because they're family. In a lot of cases, in circumstances, of course, it's very complicated, and there's all kinds of different situations. But I think that's where I could see when you're in a disagreement with a family member or something like that, that's where one must will themselves to love their son or their daughter or their mother or father.
Totally. And I think that kind of more clearly illustrates what I mean by love as epistemology. That once, only after I had made that effort, was I able to see him as he actually is.
Now, what do we do with things that we can't love then? I mean, I guess this is purely with people, and it's a relational thing. But what about when we get into things that we disagree with? What do we do with evil and sin? how does that fit into this this process?
I'm not exactly sure. I can kind of speculate on that stuff, but
Mhm.
this is all kind of new and experimental for me too.
Yeah,
And so
I love it.
I hesitate to say anything remotely like
Mhm.
declarative about that. I mean, obviously we have to not participate in sin. We have to
Yeah,
not participate in evil. We have to not endorse it. We have to not glorify it. We have to not make it look cool.
yeah.
Um and yeah.
Well, the thing that comes to my mind is that your idea of love, just that basic thing of love being wishing the other well, because I feel like evil and sin, sort of in the way I look at evil and sin, those are things the base at their very basis, the very the basic nature of evil and sin is that they are unwell, they're unproductive, they are unhealthy, they are
Yeah.
things that hurt.
Yeah.
They hurt our relationship with each other and relationship with God. So, and those are the only two things that really matter in this life. And so they, so if we're wishing somebody well and we're wishing ourselves well, of course, then evil and sin are those things which break down healthy relationship with each other and with God, something like that, right? Like there'd
Yeah.
be something
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah. One of my old mentors, used to point out that evil isn't really a self-existing presence. It's the absence of goodness. It's the absence
Mm,
of love. Like darkness is the absence of light. It doesn't exist in and of itself. You can't
mm,
shine darkness into a room.
mm,
Um, it's the absence of something that we've given a name as though it has its own existence. And there's even some biblical
yeah.
support for this idea, especially like in Revelations when they talk about the beast. It talks about the
Mhm,
devil. It says he who was and is not.
mhm,
And when it talks about God, it says he who was and is and will be forever. So
mm,
there's this acknowledgement of, the devil kind of seems to exist for now, but what he's done is rebelled against existence. He's kind of
yeah.
taken reality out of himself. And yes, there is a way in which evil exists less than good. It has less
Mhm.
existence than good.
Yeah,
Um,
that's interesting. Yeah. I
yeah,
do think that it also obfuscates it and confuses, right? Like
yeah,
evil is also something that twists, confuses things. Like Paul talks about a mirror, that dark that we see through darkly, or like a window we see through darkly. That there is something, um, and maybe it's not necessarily evil. Maybe it's just the limitations of being human,
yeah,
and our natural desires and our natural, just the things in nature that are fundamentally flawed
yeah,
and not enough, that keep us from really seeing truth, reality. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I guess that would be one of my main sermons is that the intellectual life depends so much upon the emotional life that
Mm.
I'm I'm going through kind of an anger phase.
Mm.
Um, I don't remember why. I've been doing all this soul searching lately because I feel a lot of anger. I think it's because I'm recovering from like envying philosophy people on Twitter or in the
Mm.
tech world or whatever who have a lot of respect, and I feel like that respect would be better allocated to me because I am
Mm.
more correct than they are. And I don't know, it's a very childish thing, but I'm digging it out. Um, and yeah, I kind of have this anger and frustration at the intellectual world for being so damn intellectual. And as a result, for missing the very goal that they're always on about. Like, if it's about truth, you need to pay attention to the emotional stuff. And meanwhile, I'm saying that in like kind of an emotionally unhinged way. So I'm not claiming to be like Captain Perfect here. I'm just kind of, confessing.
No, but I think that's I receive your confession, and
Thank you.
I hear it, and I confess the same thing, and I wonder, like, how to find the truth in that too, though, right? Like, it's like we don't want to throw the bath out with the baby water. It's there may be some complicating factors from our emotions, and there may be something, I believe one of my biggest top 3 things is that the anger really isn't an emotion. It's all anger is our response to pain. And someone could say, well, most emotions are just how we respond to pain, but it's a particular thing that that really angers pain and how we respond. It's a defensive thing in which we protect our personal values, our essential needs, and our self-worth. Those particular 3 things. Why was I bringing? Oh, so that's one of my top 3 sermons. But there's truth to be had when we're protecting some kind of pain. I also believe that if somebody is feeling pain, it's important to see why, and especially if you hear somebody say, I'm feeling pain right now about this thing. Well, okay, well, we need to figure out where that's coming from, what's going on. So that would be something that if I could have you back on, I'd like to talk to you more about that particular thing about intellectuals and their role to play in the society, maybe something like that.
Yeah, that is a very, very tempting thing to lecture on, to sermon on.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Mike. This has been amazing, and yet not enough. I want to hear much more. So would you be able to come on next week again?
Yeah, I think so. This time slot is generally open.
All right.
I'll be in a different place. I'm going to have a lot of cats on the wall in the background, probably, because I'm going to be at my grandmother's house. I don't have a problem. I love cats. I have one. They're great. I just don't have lots of pictures of them on the wall. It's a different aesthetic.
Well, you've got guitars and stuff. Well, where can people find you? What are you working on right now? Where people can click and go and search
Sure.
and find interesting things that you're working on.
Right on. My favorite place to be found right now is at theproclutchers.com. That is both the band, like the musical project that I'm working on. I've published some songs on there, but it's also a place where I sell devotional streetwear. I was looking for some pious clothing to wear, but I'm not a monk, so I can't wear a habit, and I'm not a priest, so I can't wear a cassock. So I started taking traditional Catholic art and putting it on t-shirts that print all over like this. And I sell them on that website to support the band and for everyone who wants it.
Okay.
So I encourage people to check that out.
Is it the Pearl Clutch? Yes, the Pearl Clutchers.
The Pearl Clutchers, yeah. I couldn't get the domain without the.
No, that's helps sometimes to be able to get that. Let me see. So let me share that so people can see. You've got music, and you got the t-shirts. Ooh, those are nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like the one you're wearing. Which one are you wearing right now?
I'm wearing the St. Teresa of Avila Transverberation.
Oh, this one, yeah. That's cool. Wow, I'm gonna have to get one of those. How do you? I've done t-shirts in the past, and getting them to cover the whole shirt that's not easy.
Yeah, there are only a few services that do it, but
Hmm.
they're very available on the internet. The service that I use is called Printful, Print
Oh yeah.
FUL, and then they
Yeah.
have a category of products that are called all over print. So if you go to Printful and just search all over print, you'll get a bunch of options for products that will let you do that.
Well, this is a great idea. And so yeah, folks, go to Pearl Clutchers and see what's going on over there. Lots of different things: music, t-shirts, and discussion. How do people get involved in the discussion? Is that sort of a closed group, or when you talked about your newsletter?
Yeah, the newsletter is something that I'm starting as an experiment, just in order to be able to make announcements more easily and just kind of coordinate the community of people who are interested in either the music or the shirts or both. And for my personal stuff, it's still my Substack newsletter called Truth Loving.
Truth Loving.
Yeah, got the
Okay.
emotional aspect in there.
Yeah, love it. Okay, well, it'd be great if we could continue the conversation, and so appreciative for you coming on.
My great pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I had a great time, and I'm eagerly anticipating the next one.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you everybody for tuning in. We had James Kimball giving us a like and watching, and others, and I just
James.
appreciate you guys. Yeah, you met James, right? You met Jensen,
I did. We
James?
had a great time. Yeah. I think of him every time I think about New Mexico.
Oh yeah. All right. Yeah, I hope to have James on in November. And so, but anyways, thank you for joining, and I'll see you next week, hopefully, if I don't see you before.
Thanks, Judah. Yeah, let's do it.